Good evening, everybody. Welcome to week 6 here in CU 132. Chef Kareen and I are awfully excited. I think we have a great class in store for everyone this evening. Week 5, that was a good week. I think we saw a lot of great stuff come rolling in. I'd noticed our on-time submission rate, though, did drop just a little bit in comparison to prior weeks. We want to make sure nobody slows down. Chef Kareen and I understand we're going into the holidays, things get busy, but don't lose sight of where you're going. You have to stay focused. A lot of learning takes place, especially in this week 6. It's a really important technique that we're going to be focusing on this week. So make sure that you maintain that focus throughout the holidays. Chef Kareen, how was week 5?
Week 5 was incredible. You know what? I told them to show off on me, Chef, and they're doing it. And
I love it.
I'm filling up 2 slides now of photos. But it's good. I'm glad that you all are stretching yourselves, especially with the techniques. And one thing I do want to point out before I show the photos, some of you, I'll point it out to you on your videos. Whenever you're dealing with raw meat, especially chicken, you want to make sure that you're practicing the utmost sanitation. So even if you have the protein in the manufacturer's packaging, guess what? That packaging has been just about everywhere, touched about everything. And there's also those juices, right? Hate using that word, but you know what I mean? That's within it. So if you sit it on your cutting board, on your table, or anything like that, guess what? You just cross-contaminated your items. So I do point that out. Now take a couple of points off, because when you get out into the industry, you won't be able to do those things. So just kind of, grooming you into where you need to be. So let's take a look.
Wow.
Yes, I told you.
That bolognese looks pretty good.
They're doing the bolognese. A few was still using the large cuts, but then there were a couple of students that I can tell that understand technique. And even though they used a cut that maybe was a little bit larger than the quarter of an inch, which we preferred more of the brunoise, they let it cook down. You know what I mean? And did exactly what they were supposed to. So you have some polenta cakes here with the grill marks, right? And then you also have some with the porridge. But I popped this in here because one of the students, where did it go? Oh my goodness, sorry.
Go back one slide. The up in the upper right hand corner. Yeah.
They took the snowflake cookie cutters and just made this. The only thing is, I was hoping that he would cook with them and do something with it and then plate it out. So here you have it, also a little bit more of a deep fry, but just being creative, making sure you're following the techniques, producing the techniques, and elevating the dish to a whole nother level. And then here's some more. This one got real fancy, right? And did the cakes, but then also molded the ragu alla bolognese.
Oh, nice.
Right? And then here you have more, a lot of the pan cake situation going on, and a little less of the cream. Few people did the polenta, but I just wanted you all to see the variations of what you can do with it, and making sure that bolognese is not so chunky. Everything is nice and smooth, but still at the same time have some juices in it. You know what I mean? So just continue to elevate yourself with the presentations, as you can see, and stay on top of your sanitation. Your narratives are coming along really well. And of course, your self-IDs. We want to include the footwear, okay? All right, Chef, I am sending it back to you.
Thank you, Chef Kareen. That was awesome. I really enjoyed taking a look at those. Polenta is an extremely versatile dish. You can serve that as a starch on your plate. Here this past week, we served it as a base for our bolognese sauce. But the list of things that you can use it for. It goes on and on. So it's a really valuable technique to stay focused on. This week, we are heading into our holiday break beginning Friday, December the 20th. So do your best to get your assignments in. However, if you don't get them in, we do give you a little bit of extra time. The assignments will reopen January the 8th, and you will be able to get them resubmitted for Chef Kareen. Like we were talking about here at the beginning of the class, I have reached the end here at Escoffier. It's been a wonderful experience, and it's a fantastic school. However, Chef Jamie Palafox will be your new instructor when you come back from holiday break. She is absolutely incredible. Her and Chef Kareen will take very, very good care of you. So you're in, if not better hands than you are now. So enjoy it. So ladies and gents, let's move on to week 6 here in CU 132. Taking a look at our class page this week, research materials, everybody, make sure that you're opening these up. And remember, this week it's really important to be posting attendance, because if you're getting a couple of days up there, you know, in the 3-4 day range, by the time the end of the week comes along, you're going to be really kind of up there. We don't want anybody to get into that withdrawal zone, which is kind of dangerous. So this week, before you conclude your business on Friday, December the 20th, make sure you take a few extra minutes to complete one of these activities with a check mark to the right-hand side, just like we have here. These will post attendance for you. Do not forget that you can take these knowledge checks as many times as you like, and only the highest score is going to stick. Great way to help you post attendance. Thank you, everybody, for being here for our live session tonight. And remember, if you need to review any of the information, you can always watch the live session archive. And then this week, ladies and gents, we're moving on to Spain, which is one of my most favorite countries. I can tell by the look on Chef Kareen's face, she loves this. So we're going to be, you have a choice this week in the kitchen of doing the tortilla española or the rizos, which is kind of an empanada type dish, and those are calling for shrimp this week. Does anybody have any questions about week 6 coming up? Everybody good on that? All right.
We have a question in there. Clarify, this is from Catherine, clarifying our assignment is due Friday instead of Tuesday. So,
You want to clarify that, Chef Kareen?
So everything shuts down on Friday. You want to get it in and just make sure you get it in, right? So, and then you still want, like Chef said, you will still have time on in next year, next year.
In 2020, you can.
Yes, can you, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that.
We are giving you until next year to get your assignment in.
Yeah. How cute is that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, if you're not able to get it in until by this Friday, which we do understand, you do have an additional 4 days beginning January the 8th to get that assignment in. So traditionally you have 7 days to get your assignment submitted from the time of the live session, from the time that the assignment opens up. You will still have those 7 days. You will have until Friday, January the 20th, and then when you come back on January the 8th, 2020, the assignment will reopen for a couple of more days, giving you the remainder of the time. Correct. So we are all set. Does that clarify the question? Did we get that straight?
Yes, she said thanks.
Oh, cool. Okay. Any other questions, ladies and gents, before we move on? All right, everyone, let's take a look at our PowerPoint this week. Spain and Portugal, side by side. Those are two really interesting countries. I always think about Spain and Portugal as being a brother and sister, or sister and sister, I don't know. But they're a lot alike and very similar in many fashions, but they both strive to have their own independent identity. So Spain and Portugal, Spain is obviously much larger, coming in with about 49 million people, whereas Portugal comes in right around 11 million people. So Spain is significantly larger than Portugal. And then up here in the north is France. And then to the east, over in this area, is Italy. And then to the south is Africa, especially Morocco, which has had a tremendous influence on the Spanish culture altogether. And then you'll see the size of Portugal. It's obviously a much smaller country. They do claim to fame for quite a few things. For example, Iberico ham, which is a very famous ham that is raised on the border of Portugal and Spain. They produce a ham that is very similar to Serrano ham, but this comes from Iberico pigs. And if the pig crosses the border and ends up in the farmer's butcher shop that is in Portugal, it cannot be called an Iberico pig because the people in Spain own that name and they stick to it very, very tough. However, if that pig takes the time to wander back across the border, the international border, and somehow clears customs, the pig can then again be called Iberico. So those two countries are very, very proud of their foods. Let's talk about some regional foods from Spain. Andalusian cuisine, which is very, very popular in Spain. They have regional cuisines, like we have our southern cuisine here, we have our west coast cuisine. Same thing happens in Spain. Andalusia is down in the southern region of Spain, down here, and you'll find a lot of olive oil, a lot of fresh tomatoes, and one of their most famous soups is gazpacho, which is a cold tomato, cucumber, bell pepper, lemon soup. It's absolutely delicious, traditionally served with a little bit of olive oil on the top and some nice croutons. Catalonia cuisine, which comes up here in the northeastern portion of the country. A lot of seafood in this region. I know that bronzino, which is a smaller white fish, which is absolutely wonderful to eat. We serve it quite a bit. And you actually eat the skin on that fish. That comes from that area. They do a lot of romesco sauce being roasted peppers and almonds, all chopped together. Very flavorful, very versatile sauce. And aioli and bouillabaisse. Bouillabaisse is a traditional broth-based soup that is made with various forms of seafood, and it's kind of a tomato-type broth. Very delicious. And then Madrid. Madrid is actually dead center of the country. And they feature a lot of dairy products in that region. They produce a lot of cheeses in that area. One of their most famous cheeses would be Manchego, which comes in various forms. You can actually get a softer Manchego or a hard ripened Manchego as well. They're also famous for their buñuelos, which is like a fried lattice. I don't know, Chef Karine, the best way to describe that. It's a circular shape. It's fried. It's like it's been cut out though in the center and like a decorative type.
An exaggerated donut, but a disc, like
Yeah,
flat.
yeah. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. I never would have come up with that. Yeah, that's why you're the best partner in the world, because you can come up with that stuff. Yeah. And then Navarre, which is one of my most favorite regions in Spain, which is in the upper north section of the country. And that is where the Basque people come from. Basque foods are very heavy in protein. They do a lot of beef, and they also do a lot of lamb dishes. They have a very unusual eating custom there in Basque. They all eat at communal tables. However, depending on your rank in society is depending on where you sit. So when you go to eat at a traditional Basque restaurant, they will sit, for example, the mayor of the town at the head of the table, and then down towards the end would be, I don't know, some position. However, they always serve the food from the head of the table down to the bottom of the table. So the higher your rank in society, the more access to the food that you have. They also like to serve a lot of cow's tongue as well in that region. And that region is right up in here. And ladies and gents, some of the more famous foods from Spain, paella. right? Chef Kareem, you like paella?
Unfortunately, I'm allergic to shellfish. I have
Oh,
to skip it.
that's tragic. That's
I know.
tragic. Paella is a wonderful classic rice-based dish
Mhm.
from Spain. It's made with a rice by the name of bobo. Bobo rice is a very short, fat grain. It's very similar to our boreal rice. It has saffron. It'll have chicken and various forms of shellfish, including clams and mussels, and also chorizo sausage. So paella is wonderful. It doesn't require, but it's traditionally served in a special paella dish. Tortilla española, and all of you get to learn about that here shortly. Gazpacho, which we just talked about. Sofrito. Now, sofrito can be kind of a very confusing thing when we mention this. You all have learned quite a bit about mirepoix. Mirepoix is traditionally 50% onion, 25% carrot, 25% celery. And that's what we'll use for the base of our stocks. We'll also ask you to make mirepoix for your sauteed dishes. Meatloaf, for example, will have mirepoix in it as well. However, in Spain and several other countries, they use sofrito, which is their base, and it's cooked down for an extended period of time with garlic, onions, and tomatoes, and it almost becomes like a paste. And so when they make their paella, instead of adding mirepoix, they add sofrito. A lot of their dishes classically contain sofrito instead of mirepoix. Pimienton, which is pimienton, I'm sorry, is the classic paprika. I love Spanish paprika that is smoked. I don't care for the plain because I just don't think it has enough identity to stand out on its own. But the smoked paprika is absolutely wonderful. Saffron, right? Chef Kareem, do you like saffron?
I do. I'll tell you a little story. When I was going through culinary school at Le Cordon Bleu, we got an opportunity to play with it. Now, you know, it's the most expensive spice in the world. It comes from this little flower, and there's only like three little tentacles in there. So that's one of the reasons why it's so expensive. But it was given to me, and I kept it in a little envelope because I was treasuring it. And my daughter threw the envelope out, not knowing what was in it. I was like,
Oh.
great.
Did you put
Okay.
her up for adoption?
No,
Yeah.
she's grown. She should be buying it back for me, really. She's a grown woman. She thought it was
uh,
little threads because it does look like little threads, little rust colored threads.
mhm.
So yeah.
Saffron is a very versatile seasoning. It can be a bit dominant in its flavor. Traditionally, we'll take those threads and we'll put them into some form of acid, whether it be white wine or lemon juice, which allows those threads to bloom and release that brilliant yellow color that permeates everything that you are cooking, including your fingers if you happen to get it in there. But as Chef Kareem was saying, saffron is one of the world's most expensive spices because it is extremely labor intensive to have somebody stand there and pull those threads. It originated, the big industry originated in Morocco, and as we'll see here in a bit, it's Spain has taken that over. And then Serrano ham. We were talking about Serrano ham just a moment ago um, in the form of Iberico ham. Spanish ham or Serrano ham is very, very different. Similar in nature to speck and similar in nature to prosciutto. However, Serrano ham is traditionally comes from pigs, Iberico pigs, that are fed a diet of acorns, which give the meat this sultry, oily type finish. It's air dried ham. I can tell Chef Kareem up there is ready to run out to the nearest tapas bar and buy some, right? Chef Kareem?
Why are you picking on me tonight?
Because I'm running out of gas.
Yeah, you're making me hungry too. I don't even eat. Well, I can't say I don't eat pork. My whole diet has changed, but sometimes these classes make me want to cheat. Okay. Yes, it's incredible ham.
And it's served, there's a special knife that you use. It's traditionally about 16 inches long, and it's about 3/4 of an inch thick. And when the Serrano ham is sliced, it is to be served paper thin. You can actually pick it up and see the person across the table from you, and it is a wonderful delicacy. The Serrano ham is actually only about 8 inches, 10 inches wide, and maybe about 12 to 16 inches tall. So it's a very interesting cut of pork. Ladies and gents, let's move on to some wines in Spain. They're very dominant in that industry as well. Cava is their form of champagne, so it is technically referred to as a sparkling wine, coming from right down in this Andalusia, Barcelona region of Spain. And then Tempranillo, which is one of my most favorite Spanish wines. It's a red wine. It can be a little bit big, but it's not nearly as big as, say, a Cabernet or a Nebbiolo. It's a little bit closer in nature to that of a Merlot, but it has its own fruity characteristics that are absolutely wonderful. And then Spain, with their wine, 23 gallons of wine per person per year is what they produce in that country. So I don't think there's too much dehydration running around there. So 23 gallons of wine per person, which is really, really interesting. All right, ladies and gents, let's talk about eating in Spain and Portugal, right? So Spain and Portugal both share a very common form of eating, and that's eating from small plates. And that is referred to as tapas style service, T-A-P-A-S, or petiscos is the name in Portugal, or up in the north of Portugal, they'll call that pinchos. And so basically, instead of going into a restaurant and ordering an entree, you order various small plates, and they're all very unique and special dishes. And those are beginning to gain some popularity here in the United States. And then eating and drinking in Spain and Portugal, wine. It is so popular there that, here, oftentimes we go into a restaurant and the meal will include a soda. Well, in Spain and Portugal, traditionally your meal will include a glass of wine. So it's very, very common. Tipping is a slightly different scenario there. Here in the United States, we traditionally tip anywhere between 18 to 20% to take care of our service staff if they've done a good job for us. However, in Spain and Portugal, that number is right around 5 or 10%. So let's take a look at the meals that they eat there. They have a slightly different meal schedule than we do. Desayuno, breakfast, will be served very late in the morning, right around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock is pretty normal breakfast time for them. And then they like to take a coffee break after that, kind of slow down, smell the coffee, as they like to say. And then their lunch time will oftentimes be later in the afternoon, sometime around 4 o'clock to eat lunch. 3 or 4 o'clock is very, very common for them. And then dinner. Dinner in Spain is, if you go into a restaurant in Spain around 7 o'clock in the evening, it will be empty. There'll be nobody there, just you. However, if you go around 10 or 11 p.m. or even midnight, the restaurants are full. That is dinner time for them. So they eat at a very much later schedule throughout the days. Something very special. It's also done that way in Mexico quite a bit. So it's taken me a little time to get used to. Let's talk a bit about Portugal, ladies and gents. Portugal has been very restrictive to relying upon the Atlantic Ocean for their foods. So they have a diet that is very, very high in seafood, but they also eat a lot of garlic, a lot of black pepper, and then they also use a lot of olive oil in their foods. And that's one of the biggest differentials, whereas Spain will get into the saffrons, wine reductions, lamb, pork, beef, A lot of that paprika, that smoky flavor, kind of permeates their foods. A lot of sofrito with that rich tomato garlic flavor. However, in Portugal, the foods are going to be a lot more lighter and a lot more simple with just olive oil, garlic, a lot of seafood. They do like to cook with vanilla and cinnamon as well. So those are some of the big differences between Spain and Portugal. Let's take a
Also,
look.
lots of fresh food too, chef.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of fresh food. And like you said, eating lighter, right? Which
Mhm.
means they can also eat more or more frequently throughout the day. And that wine kind of helps with digestion too, right? Lots of that garlic too. So just think about the way we eat over here. If you serve someone lunch at 4 o'clock, something is wrong. You know, we're so used to our lunches being around 12 noon and so forth because we're in this routine. About 4 o'clock, we're getting ready to go home and prepping for dinner. So,
Mhm.
like you said, if you visit overseas, you see that things are, you know, a lot different and you have to get used to it. But you can
Yes.
adjust just for a little while. It's okay.
Absolutely. And I've known for quite some time, they do like to imbibe in wine throughout the day. It's not necessarily 5 o'clock wine time like it is here in the United States. It's not unusual to have a glass of wine with lunch. It's very, very normal, not to the point of intoxication, but more as a digestive. And I think that is always something very special about their country. There's a big difference between eating in Spain and in the United States. Here, oftentimes in the United States, we will find ourselves in a drive-through eating to sustain ourselves to the next meal. However, in Spain and Portugal and down through Italy and Greece and those countries which is a major blue zone, they like to sit and enjoy their meals, which I refer to as living, and talk with friends, be present with their food, and enjoy a glass of wine. And so the food is really a standout in that culture. It's very, very important. Let's take a look at some of the traditional foods from Portugal. Bacalhau. Bacalhau is a really super cool dish. It is served here in southern Arizona quite a bit, especially around the holidays. However, it is served all year round in Portugal. It is made from salt cod, which is stewed with olives, potatoes, and hard-boiled eggs. And it sounds a little different when that's said. However, it is a very flavorful, very filling dish. It's traditionally served in a tapas style format. A smaller portion with toasted baguette is a classic presentation. Petiscos, uh, which literally means to eat a little of this, a little of that, which goes back to the tapas style service. So it is very, very common that you will sit down and order 6 or 7 different plates of food in Portugal versus ordering one entree. So if you walk into a restaurant and you say, I'll have a pan-seared New York strip steak poivre with dauphinoise potatoes and roasted asparagus, they might look at you strange. They'll say, how many plates of that would you like? Because they like to serve tapas, smaller portions. It's their custom.
It
And
also,
then,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
It also, it's about community too.
Yes.
So you can have several different plates, and you'll see throughout this class as you move along, there are other cultures that love to eat in that communal setting. So the little plates, this allows you to eat many different things. So you can pick off for, you know, different plates. And like Chef said, it has been here for a couple of years now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not just on a Spanish thing, but just um, the whole thing with the tapas, the little plates. Is it's kind of trendy, but it's doing pretty well.
Yeah, it is. I did a tapas restaurant a couple of years ago at a hotel. I was the director of food and beverage at, and it became a very successful outlet for us. And we were finding that people enjoy eating smaller quantities of multiple different foods versus a large quantity of one food.
One. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the key thing. It makes you feel you're getting so much more for your money,
Yeah.
and the experience of people, because you could sit at a table big enough where it's not just your party, like it could be other people sitting there too, and you're all meeting. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's how they like to eat. And in other places in Europe and Morocco and so forth, they do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I wish we did see more communal style dining here in the United States versus our autonomous form of dining
Yeah.
with our personal devices. So it would be nice to kind of do that face-to-face type thing,
Yeah.
especially
Put that phone down, right? It's so hard.
get rid of that thing. Get rid of that thing. Yeah. We actually have phone sleeping bags at the resort that I'm currently with because they don't want you with your resort with your phone at the resort. So you put it in the sleeping bag, and then you put the sleeping bag into the cell phone bed, and you leave it there. So it's kind of cool. And then another great dish from Portugal. It's a bean stew, and here's a picture of it down here in the corner. And it's traditionally made with black beans, but that pork, as they stew it, it just breaks down and it becomes extremely tender. Absolutely wonderful dish. This is bacalhau up here in the corner. And these are various tapas here. Tapas actually originated in the bars. The bars would, every time you'd buy a drink, they'd give you a little something else to eat because they wanted to keep you as a patron. So the more you drank, the more you ate, and the more money they made. And so that's where tapas stems from. Ladies and gents, let's take a look at Portugal by region to see some of their different foods. Up in the north, the caldo verde and the codfish. They do a lot of pork and duck up in this region as well. And then once you get into the central area, you'll find that they serve more crustaceans. Crustaceans being defined as shrimp and clams and oysters. Crustaceans are traditionally seafood with the shell on the exterior, the vertebrae on the exterior. And then in the south, a lot of seafood-based broth soups, not cream soups, but broth soups. A lot of snails. In the finer places, we call that escargot. Then they also do a lot of other different forms of seafood, such as octopus, calamari, and cuttlefish, which are all absolutely delicious. Does anybody have any questions about Spain or Portugal? All right, ladies and gents, let's take a look at some Spain facts, because Spain is filled with facts. Not only have they attempted to take the world over on multiple occasions, invading many other countries many, many years ago, back in the 1500s, they did provide a lot of cultural influence everywhere that they went, but their foods have really had a major impact on our societies. Spain, 44% market share of producing olive oil. So most likely, if you do use olive oil, it is a good chance it comes from Spain. They control 44% of the world's production. And then check this out. Wine comes from virtually every country, but 15% of the vineyards in this world are in Spain. That is an astonishing number. That is huge, right? So Morocco used to be the world's #1 producer of saffron. As times have changed, Spain has certainly stepped up to the plate and taken that title over. They currently produce 75% of the world's production of saffron. Absolutely amazing. So saffron, once again, Chef Karine, when your daughter disposed of those threads, most likely a little bit of Spain went down in the trash as well. So Spain is also, they like bars. They really like bars. They happen to be second in the world for number of bars per inhabitant. And the #1 country is Cyprus, which is right around the corner from Spain. So there's the second largest amount of bars per capita than any other city in the world, and only being beat out by Cyprus, which is a smaller country. So you know where you could find them in the evening and what they're doing. Ladies and gents, this week we have the opportunity to produce our option of making two different dishes. The first is one that I love, and I love to serve this dish for brunches. I think it's absolutely fantastic because it's something you can prep out in advance, and then when your guests arrive, you can just cook it all off and you look like an amazing rock star. And then you can cut it into wedges and then top it with a little bit of Manchego cheese, throw it into your broiler for a few moments, and you have a dish that is to die for. So ladies and gents, tortilla española is our first recipe that we're gonna take a look at. These are a couple of pictures right here. Be cautious when you're making this recipe this week. You have to remember to go low and slow. These are thicker portions of egg, right? So you have to turn your flame down to reduce that heat to allow that egg to thoroughly cook through. So make sure that you're patient with your dish. Try not to wait till the last minute to do this. Your mise en place for this dish calls for 4 ounces of olive oil, 1 pound of yellow potatoes. This calls for Yukon Gold potatoes. If you can't find Yukon Gold potatoes, try to avoid waxy potatoes such as the red potato for this dish. It does not work well, but you could substitute russet or Idaho potatoes. Those will work well. And then a 1/2 cup of medium diced onions. Medium dice being described as 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Chef Karine will have her magnifying glass out. So the reason we are concerned about that, if all of your knife cuts are consistent, then all of your product will cook at the same time. And that's really critical in this dish because you're working with eggs and you need to be a little bit more concerned about cooking temperatures and time. God forbid your eggs should become thoroughly cooked and your potatoes are still raw. So make sure you watch out for that. This recipe is also going to call for 6 eggs beaten. So just scramble them lightly. You don't have to make too much of a story out of it, but just crack them into a soup bowl, take a fork and just scramble them. Then you'll need some additional olive oil down at the end and some salt and pepper. So the mise en place is fairly simple to find. Then what you're gonna do after you gather your mise en place, prep all your stuff out. Potatoes 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Same thing with your onions, right? Have it ready to go. Get a medium-sized skillet. Medium-sized skillet or saute pan would be anywhere from, what's that, Chef Karine? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought medium-sized skillet is going to be anywhere between 8 to 10 inches. Nothing too big because otherwise your española, your tortilla española is going to come out too thin, right? If you use a small saute pan, then it's going to come out too thick and your eggs won't cook all the way. So you try to find one in between 8 to 10 inches. You're going to put that on medium heat, and then you're going to add your olive oil, right? Once your pan is hot, add your olive oil. Hot pan, cold oil equals no stick. Then you're going to add your onions and potatoes. Add a little bit of salt at this point in time because that's going to break down your onion fibers, allow those juices to excrete, and helps with the cooking process and expedite it. Saute until those potatoes are soft. And then you're going to turn that heat up a little bit to add some color to the potatoes and to the onions. At this point, you're going to turn off your heat and set your pan to the side. And then make sure your eggs are ready to go. And then you're going to, after your potatoes and eggs or potatoes and onions are cooled down, you're going to add those to the eggs, right? And then you're going to stir it all up, make sure it's all mixed in there real well. Everybody's happy in that soup bowl together. And then you're going to put that skillet, put it onto the stove, get it nice and hot. And then you're going to add the 3 ounces of olive oil, the second portion of olive oil. You're going to add the 3 ounces of olive oil, and then you're going to pour the entire egg mixture into the saute pan. Then you're going to turn that heat down nice and low. Let it take its time. If the heat is too high, your eggs are going to get brown and nasty on the outside and be raw on the inside. Eggs, when they're overcooked, become very chewy, and they also pick up a bitter flavor from that burnt on the outside of it. We don't like that. Once the eggs have begun to set, you're going to try to flip it over. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. If you're really confident with a saute pan, go for it. If you're not, you can take a plate, flip it out onto the plate, and then slide it back into the saute pan. Does that make sense to everybody? So you can take a plate, put it over the top of the saute pan, flip it out onto the plate, and then slide it back in. So you will have flipped over your tortilla español. This allows both sides to cook nice and evenly. And then once your tortilla is about 3/4 of the way cooked, you're going to make a small hole in the center, which will allow the heat to travel through to ensure that everything is fully cooked in the center. And then you're going to flip your tortilla back over again. If you're not confident with this yet, plate over the top, turn it up, slide it onto the plate, which will allow that hole on the bottom to kind of close up, right? So you want to make sure you do that. And then you're going to transfer that tortilla to a serving dish, a nice platter, and you're going to cover it with a little bit of salt and pepper. I like to let it cool for a moment before I cut it, and then you're good to go. I've seen many times where it gets brushed with a little bit of olive oil over the top, so it has a nice sheen to it. It looks very delicious. I've also seen people take Spanish paprika and kind of shake it over the top, which gives it a nice color on the outside. Or I love taking shaved manchego over the top. That's absolutely wonderful. Once again, this is a wonderful brunch dish. Does anybody have any questions about the tortilla española?
I will say this, Chef. Be careful with that oil. You're going to find that there's a lot of that oil. So be careful, especially when you're flipping it. Remember, it's hot. It's going to seem like it's a tremendous amount of oil, but you need it so that the tortilla is not going to stick. Also, I know the recipe is saying a medium cut for the onions. If you do it right, you can also do a small dice. You just have to watch your onions. Remember, they're caramelized. And another thing that we get from the students when it's totally done, it tastes bland. So remember what you're dealing with. You have eggs and you have potatoes, which is starch, right? So think about this. You're the cook. The result is up to you. So you make sure you flavor it.
Yep.
Okay? Flavor it up. We don't want to see bland because you don't want it to go out to the guests and then the guests say, oh, it's bland. And I know Chef said you add, certain things on top. You don't want that flavor to just come from those toppings. You should have some flavor in that tortilla.
That is sound advice, Chef Karine. You don't want to be putting anybody to sleep at your table when they're eating your food. So,
and you don't want rubbery eggs. So you don't want it, don't walk away and let it sit and become too rubbery. Because then the eggs will overcook also, and you'll see that, I'll be able to see it when you cut it, that you just let it sit there and that outer layer is like rubber. You don't want to serve that.
Absolutely. Great advice. Royal, what's your question? Royal?
Pitches. What's the pitcher requirement for this week?
We're going to get to that here in just a minute. I'm gonna cover the next assignment, the next recipe, and then following that, we'll get into all the requirements for this week's assignment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, ladies and gents, let's take a look at our rissos de camarón. This is a great dish. It's got a lot of flavor to it as well. Wonderful for entertaining. I like to use these for banquets. They work out real well in the hotel environment. There's a couple of pictures of them, so you know what the final products should look like. with these wonderful shrimp. So for your filling, which is going to be the first thing that you're going to prepare, your shrimp, make sure that they are, number one, peeled, and then make sure that they are also deveined. And when we refer to a shrimp as being deveined, if you take a look at a shrimp, you will take your knife and run it along the backside of the shrimp, approximately a 1/16 of an inch. It's a very, very shallow cut. And then you will open up the flesh of the shrimp, and you will notice a vein that runs down the backside, carrying what we don't want into the ocean. So you're going to pull that vein and you're going to wash it out. So make sure that you do that. You will then cut your shrimp into a very small dice, chop it up literally, and this shrimp is raw. And then you're going to have egg yolk, butter, flour. Make sure that flour is sifted, because that will catch up to you if you don't sift it, because you could run into a problem with a couple of lumps in there. Milk, lemon juice, a very critical element in this dish, because that lemon juice is going to help pop that flavor that Chef Karine was talking about a moment ago. It'll help bring it to life. And then we have a little bit of salt and pepper. For that filling, make sure that you heat your skillet first. Chef Karine brought up a very valid point about the tortilla. To prevent sticking, right? Hot pan, cold oil equals no stick. So make sure you follow that simple recipe. Do not put your pan on the stove, add your oil, then heat it up. Heat up the pan and then add the oil. That will help out quite a bit. So for this recipe, hot pan, then you're going to add your butter. You're going to season your shrimp with salt and pepper and saute until it's cooked through. Remember, shrimp is a protein. Proteins are very sensitive to carryover heat. So once you get that shrimp hot and it begins to pick up that pinkish color, you can then turn off your saute pan, stir it around a little bit, remove it from the heat, and it will finish itself off. Trust us, it'll happen. And then you're going to add, you're going to remove that shrimp from your pan. And then you're going to add flour to the butter that is in the pan, the leftover butter. Just remove the shrimp, but not the butter. Okay, so you could take a perforated spoon and kind of scoop out the shrimp, put it onto another plate, and then you're going to add the flour. And you're going to slowly stir that in, and you're going to make a roux, right? There's no need to mix it up, because we don't need to develop glutens. You just want to make sure that your flour and your butter have come together nicely. Once your roux has been created, you are then going to add milk, and you're going to blend that together. You might have to turn up the heat a little bit at this point to get that roux to take with the milk, and you're going to create a, I like to call it a mock bechamel, but it's going to be a white sauce at that point. Now, tricky part here, but a great technique to learn. Once you have that bechamel and you've tasted it, it tastes good, you're going to turn your heat down. Okay, you don't want boiling bechamel. Then you're going to combine your lemon juice and your egg yolk, and you're going to stir that into your bechamel, right? And then you're going to add your shrimp, and then you're going to remove it and just let it all hang out there for a few minutes and kind of cool down. This is a great time to taste your filling, to make sure that your salt and your pepper. You might need a little bit more lemon juice, but like Chef Karine was saying, it's really important to be tasting these foods to make sure that you are spot on with the flavors that you're looking for. Now, after that is done and your shrimp mixture is cooling, you're going to make the dough. The dough is extremely simplistic. You're going to take your water, butter, zest, and salt. You bring it to a boil, right? 212 degrees. And then you're going to add your flour, and you're going to stir that in over low heat, right? And then once that is done and your dough ball has formed, you're going to remove it from the pot. What you are looking for is that dough. You're going to add your flour to that boiling mixture, turn the heat down low, stir it, mix it all together. Once it pulls clean from the side and forms a ball, then it is done. You can remove it from the heat and allow it to cool. At that point, you're going to need the dough for just a couple of moments to develop some of the gluten structure that's required to hold it together. And then you're going to roll the dough out, right? And I think one of the best ways to do this is the dough needs to be about 1/8 of an inch thick, right? Fairly thin. Then you can either take a coffee cup or you can take a glass. You're going to want one that's about 3 to 4 inches wide, right? And you'll put that down and use that to cut your disc. You're going to cut disc circles, right, out of your dough. 1/8 of an inch thick, about 3 to 4 inches wide for your dough, right? Then once your dough is cut, then you're going to add 1 teaspoon of filling to the middle of the dough. And then don't add more thinking more is better, because in this case, it ain't, right? Because otherwise it's going to be flowing out the sides. You're going to take your finger and you're going to go around the disc, right? You're just going to pat it just like this, right? Just to moisten the lip of the disc. And then you're going to fold it into half, right? And then you're going to pinch it with your fingers so it forms a nice seal so none of that mixture is going to leak out. Now, they're shaped, they're filled. You just got to bread, right? So you're going to create a traditional breading station, right? Traditional breading station, flour, egg, and then the breadcrumbs. That's it, right? So you're going to dip it into the flour, shake off the excess. And then it's going to go into the egg wash, right? The egg wash is just the beaten egg goes in there, pull it out, let the excess run off. Then you're going to take the egg wash, rissos, and you're going to put it into the breadcrumbs. Pack it on there, shake off the excess, and then your assembly is done. Okay? At that point, you're going to take some oil. Don't use olive oil, please. Please use grapeseed, peanut, avocado oil, because the extra virgin or regular olive oil has a very low smoke point and your food could become bitter as a result. You're going to heat your oil up to about 350 degrees. And then you're going to deep fry until they are GBD, golden brown and delicious. I like to put the rissos into the refrigerator to allow them to cool in the center after I've breaded them before I put them into the oil. So you could do this over a 2-day process if you like. Just prepare them one day, cook them the next day if you want to save yourself some time or create more time for yourself. When they come out of the fryer, make sure they go onto a rack. Don't put them into a paper towel, because that paper towel is going to prevent the product from steaming and will make it more greasy and oily. So put it onto a rack that allows it to steam, pushes the remainder of the oil out, and then you can season it with a little bit of salt. Boy, you're going to be so happy. Those are delicious. Chef Kareen, did I miss anything on those?
No, you did it. You didn't. You did good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those, what's that?
No, I said yeah.
Those are an absolutely fantastic dish. I love them. Wonderful to serve, very common for tapas, very versatile for banquet service as well. And they also make fantastic appetizers. So they're like little deep fried empanadas, I guess you'd kind of call them at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Or tiny little beef patties.
Yeah.
Like Chef said, when you're rolling out that dough, always think ahead. A good chef, cook thinks ahead. So when you're rolling out your dough, already plan on how you're going to seal it. You want to make sure it's not too thick, because remember, you're bringing the sides together like that, and then the edges are going to become thicker. So that's why he said to make sure you're rolling it out really thin. Think about, you're already encasing it in dough, and now you're going to add flour, eggs, and breadcrumbs. So you need for that covering to be nice and thin. If not, the mouthfeel is just going to be very starchy.
Yes, absolutely. Very well spoken. Some of the best advice I've ever received in the world of culinary arts. Never, ever, ever think about what you're doing. always think about what you are going to be doing. You will be much more efficient. So as Chef Karine was saying, when you're assembling them and you're crimping them, don't be thinking about that. You're wasting your time. Think about what the next step is, to plan ahead. It makes you a lot more efficient, a lot faster. So great advice, Chef Karine. All right, ladies and gents, anybody have any questions? Let's take a quick look here. All right, ladies and gents, I know Royal asked this question a little bit earlier about our photo requirements. Both are fairly the same as far as identification photo, sanitation bucket, critical step to your success, making sure that's right. Make sure you wear shoes. Please. Chef Karine has an issue with that, and so does the health department. And you know what, as a chef, so do I, right? So it's a safety issue. It's a personal hygiene issue. It's a sanitation issue. So please wear shoes. Self-identification photo critical, sanitation photo. Make sure that you have pictures of mise en place. The pictures of your mise en place. Chef Karine does not want to see a potato. She wants to see pictures of the cut potatoes so she can take a look at your measurements. Very, very important. Cooked protein. So you want a picture of your shrimp, your bechamel with the shrimp in it, your dough, 1/8 of an inch disc. This says 1/4 of an inch. I like 1/8 of an inch. It's a little bit better. Spoon of filling right into the center of the disc, and then closed, right where we pinch it up, get the rim a little bit wet, kind of pinch it up. 3-stage breading station, then the breaded rissos, and then the rissos frying, and then a picture of the finished product. And then, ladies and gents, virtually the same thing for the tortilla española, mise en place. Not a picture of an onion, a picture of a cut onion, right? Very, very important. Then a picture of the onions and potatoes in a pan, eggs whipped in a bowl, onions, potatoes, and eggs in a bowl, mixture in the pan, the finished product, and 2 identical plates showing the final product. So both recipes require 2. Very, very important. And then don't forget that narrative, ladies and gents, extremely critical. Any other questions, ladies and gents?
I have a question for them, Chef.
Sure.
How many of you know what mise en place means?
There we go, we got a hand. Deborah. What's it mean, Deborah?
Can't hear you, Deborah.
Let me unmute her. There you go, Deborah.
Your mise en place is to have everything prepared, set out, everything just like you get ready to put it in the pan, and just like you're getting ready to cook it. Everything already chopped up, peeled, chopped up, everything measured up. It needs to be paired.
Yeah, everything in its place. And that helps you have a smoother execution in your production. Mise en place is basically what we were just talking about, planning ahead.
Yep, absolutely. So, ladies and gents, mise en place is critical. We thrive on good mise en place in industry. It makes you go faster. So, any other questions, ladies and gents?
When is this assignment due? When you return.
Yes. When you return from break.
So you can get your mise en place in order. You know what? Test this out on your family.
Yep.
Over the break. And while you're doing it, take some really nice photos. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
See?
Please do.
Then you don't have to worry about when it's due. It's already done.
All right, ladies and gents, I do want to take a moment and remind everybody you are all blessed to be here at Escoffier. Escoffier is a fantastic school of culinary arts, and I think everybody has a wonderful opportunity. I also want to take a moment to thank Escoffier and everybody here at Escoffier, especially Chef Karine, whom I've had the opportunity to work with on several occasions and whom I will dearly miss. This has been a fantastic experience. If anybody has any questions, make sure that you reach out. Do not forget, when you come back from your holiday break, that Chef Jamie Palafox will be leading the class with Chef Kareen. You are in excellent hands. She is a fantastic instructor, and we already know that Chef Kareen is fantastic. So thank you, everybody, for this wonderful opportunity. And I hope everybody has a fantastic holiday break. And please, by all means, be safe. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chef.
Take care. Bye-bye.